Hello?
Hello, welcome. We'll get started shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I know you are so used to because you're alone too when you're playing the music. Feeling for you too?
And foreclosures, even the ones that are all going through the
Weird part was that my neighbor
Hi, yes, we'll be starting shortly. I wasn't speaking in the chat, that's why you can hear me. I'm actually going to be sending over a link in the chat if you guys can click on it. This is to a Google slide presentation, and you can see kind of what the outline of today is going to be. We are still getting some people signing on, so I'm going to wait a few more minutes till everybody's here. In the meantime, I'm going to send that link out to our Google slide one more time. Go ahead and click on that so you can review what I'll be covering today.
Got it.
It should be okay.
Yes, just to let everybody know, this session is going to be recorded and posted for any teachers who may need some help setting this up. So if you would like, if you prefer not to have your face recorded, you can turn off your camera if that's your preference.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
this is Heather Gonzalez Rubio.
Oh, hi, how are you?
That's my picture of my doggy right there. Is this for Computerwise Kids, or is this for your workers, or is this for teachers as well?
This is for teachers to help them get started with Zoom right now, at least this first meeting.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. We still have some people joining, so we're gonna wait a couple more minutes.
I forgot how I get
I
my
turned off my thing. I
picture.
didn't want anyone to see me.
That's perfectly fine. For those of you that just
Right.
for those of you that just signed in, I want to let you guys know that this session is being recorded. And if you'd prefer not to have your face recorded, you can turn off your camera. So if that's your preference.
Regina.
The link that I sent out, if you're viewing it, you can make a copy of it. I'll show you guys in a second how to do that once everybody is here.
While we're waiting, can I ask you a question about Zoom?
Of course.
I had a meeting already with one of my students and with several of my students,
Mhm.
but I wasn't able to change the background, and I'm confused about how there's two things you have to sign in.
Okay, so for the virtual backgrounds, I think that's what you're referring
Yeah.
to.
Uh-huh.
Not all computers can do that. It depends on the hardware that's in your computer. So I know if you're in a MacBook Air, for some reason that wasn't working. So it could just be that your computer can't handle that capability right now.
Well, Leslie did, and my husband was able to do it on his thing. I guess there's two kinds of things you have to sign into. One of them is like the web or the desktop account,
Mhm.
and one of them is a web account. Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, there is a Zoom desktop that I'll be actually sharing a link for that you can install. So that might be, you could possibly get around the virtual background by installing this web desktop. But I do know that there are some computers that are just not going to be able to handle it. So, but I'll share with you that link.
Okay, it's odd that Leslie was able to figure it out, but I can't.
Ooh, that's cold.
Good morning.
It's all around. You find it.
You're lucky she's not on right now.
Say it
Okay,
to her. She would know. She'd be okay.
I think we are maxed out. I think 100 is our limit, just FYI. If you're running your own session, 100 participants is going to be your limit right now, unless you have a paid version. But this will cover features that you can do with the free version that is being offered right now by Zoom.
Okay.
So I'm going to post this link one more time in case anybody did not see it in the chat. This is to the Google slide presentation. I'll show you guys how to make a copy right now. Let me just start sharing my screen.
You can share that link with our colleagues.
Yes, you're welcome to share that. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, you should see right now, this is the Zoom desktop I was talking about earlier. We'll go over how to download and install this in a second. Let me minimize that for now. And then we should be on this Google slide. So first of all, I want to start off just by mentioning, for those of you that just signed in, if you'd prefer not to have your face recorded in this session, please turn off your camera. This session will be recorded and possibly shared with other teachers who need help logging into Zoom and setting up their Zoom sessions.
How do you do that? Press stop video?
Yes, stop video.
Goodbye.
All right, so just very quickly, some things we're going to cover today. How to create a Zoom account. I'm assuming a lot of you already have this, so this might not apply for you, but it's good to review how to do this. Number 2, installing your Zoom desktop for Windows or Mac. 3, scheduling a Zoom meeting. Logging in to a Zoom meeting, how the kids are actually going to log into your Zoom meeting. We're going to go over some meeting controls, some features that are offered in Zoom, and then some do's and don'ts, some best practices for running this Zoom meeting. So on slide number 3, if you're following along on your computer, I have here a link to the Zoom website. It's zoom.us. Right now, Zoom is offering to remove their limit. This session typically is only able to run for 40 minutes for free on a free account. But with all the stuff that's happening, they've actually removed this limit. And we've had sessions that run for a couple of hours without any problem. So that should be more than enough for our needs. Remember to use your LAUSD account when you are registering for this account. If you're not aware, your LAUSD account also acts as your Google account. So when you sign up, and let me go to the link. When you sign up, this is the screen you should see. Right, you have this sign up, it's free. And then if you're logged into your LAUSD account, you can just sign in with Google, and you'll have to allow it some permissions to enable this login with Google feature. But once you do, it should be fairly simple to log in. I'll demo it right now. Just sign in and then sign in with Google. And you're inside your account, right? So that I think is the easiest way to set up your Zoom account. It's just use the LAUSD account that you already have. You don't have to worry about remembering another password. It's just a one-click thing and you're in. Any questions about that?
I'm sorry, I have a quick
Yes.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I have a friend trying to get in. Is it like only 100 people right now? Are they not?
I believe so. Let me see if it'll let me do a couple more. I'm not sure. Were they able to get in?
No.
No, yeah, then it's 100 people maximum right now.
Oh, okay.
If you're running a second session, you can let them know that at 11 o'clock, I'll have a second session go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So the next thing is installing the Zoom desktop. Now, I recommend you install the Zoom desktop just to avoid any logging in from, Google Chrome, or, this might not be working, my sign-in changed. It's best just to have a desktop application to handle it. So if you guys can see my desktop, this is what the icon for Zoom looks like. And the interface looks just like this. Right, it has 4 basic functions up front. You can start a meeting. Right now we're in a meeting, so it says return to meeting. You can join a current session. You can schedule a session, and you can start a share screen session. There's also some other features that I won't be covering today, but you can start like a group chat on here if you have other colleagues that you want to share some resources with, or have some type of communication through this, you can. You can view your upcoming sessions in here, and you can view contacts as well. So if you would like to install that, which I highly recommend, I've pasted the link on here. 11 is when Buettner is speaking. If they are having an issue with accessing this meeting, like I said, it will be recorded, and then we can send that out to them so that they can participate that way. Okay.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
will this all of this is going to be on a recording that we'll be able to access? Like, will you send us a link, or how do we access the recording that you're making?
Yes, we will send out a link.
Okay.
And actually at the end of the session, or maybe now, since you brought it up, I wanted to have everybody type in their email address so we get a copy of it, and we can either send you that link, or we will have a follow-up session and send you like an invitation for that follow-up session.
So type it in chat.
Yeah, you can just type it in the chat, and then there's a feature where you can actually just save everything that's in the chat, which might come in handy for you guys, which I'll go over once we get into the meeting tools.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Sanchez. Will you
Yes.
be teaching us how to do the recording also in this lesson, so we can provide that a recorded lesson to students?
Yes.
Well, awesome. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot of cool features. Hopefully we can get through all of them. But if not, that's why we have a second session, so that we can cover anything. I can cover this first session, and then any questions you may have after trying this yourself. Okay. So if you, like I was saying, if you would like to download and install this software, here is the link. This will work on a Mac or a Windows computer. This Zoom does work on iPads and on phones, on iPhones or other tablets or other phones. However, the screen size, the resolution is pretty small. And when you're trying to showcase something to a student, it might be too small for them to actually view. And the other thing with an iPad is sometimes we have to showcase and have the kids do something on a website at the same time. That's not feasible on an iPad because they could only be on one application at a time. Whereas if they're on a Chromebook or on a MacBook or some type of a desktop computer, they can have multiple programs running and view them at the same time. So that's not possible on phones or on tablets. So.
Will this work with old computers, or is this because I was trying to run it on an older Mac and it wasn't really working?
What wasn't working? I'm sorry. The screen?
Zoom, I was doing a test meeting at home from one Mac to another, and I was not very successful.
I'd have to double check the specifications, but I believe it works with any Mac OS that is at least 10.7 and above, and any Windows that is at least Windows 7 and above.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I want to schedule a meeting right now to kind of demo how you can do that with the desktop, with the Zoom desktop. And then we'll go over all the different options that are available for scheduling a meeting. So I'm going to open up my desktop here.
Where do we have some lined paper?
We're going to select schedule. And you can see there's a lot of options up front. So we'll go over these from top to bottom. The first thing you want to do is give this meeting a topic, right? So for my purpose, this will be a demo meeting. This can be your, it could be your room number, weekly meeting, daily meeting. It could be a meeting specifically for an activity. Give it a topic so that the participants know what this is for. You can select the date. Make sure you schedule that date correctly, and then the time on the right side here. The duration also needs to be selected, whether it's an hour and a half or more. Make sure that is accurate. And if this is going to be a recurring meeting, you can select this option. But for right now, we're going to, it goes into your calendar and it becomes a little more complicated. For now, we're just going to set up a one-time session. And then moving down here, we have this meeting ID. This will generate a specific code, specific URL for that particular meeting. And then we have password. The meeting closed after the specified. Not necessarily, just to answer the question in the chat, it won't necessarily close after the meeting duration, and you will have to end the meeting yourself. This is more like setting up a calendar event. Later on, you'll see that it will link to your Google Calendar or Outlook or any other calendar that's here. So this will create the event in your calendar event.
Mr. Sanchez, can I ask
yes.
a quick question?
Yes.
If you click personal meeting, will that always be your meeting number?
Yes, so this particular ID is for the user. If you want to have, if you want to give out just your personal meeting ID, this will always be the same URL. And that could be a strategy if you're planning to use this frequently or recurrently at a specific given time without having to share different URLs. You can set up this personal ID, and it's a one-time URL that's always for that user.
Would that be advised for our purposes for our classroom?
Yes, if you're going to use this frequently and you plan to have frequent meetings with the kids, I just use that one-time URL. It might be easier for the kids also to save that, bookmark it, or have the parents save it somewhere. So you can use your personal ID. Yeah. If you're doing, for instance, what I'm doing, which is this PD, then that would not be advisable. I would create a one-time session for that meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Is anybody having an issue seeing my screen by chance, or is everything okay?
It's a little blurry.
It's a little blurry. It might be the number of people in this session. It's it's streaming to 100.
I can see fine.
I do know if you turn microphones off, it helps the connection.
Thank you for that tip. Yes, if you like, you can try that. Mute the microphone. Also stop your video if you haven't done so. And hopefully that will improve the signal. So for passwords, this would depend on how private you want to keep your sessions. If you want to make sure that only your students are able to log in, you might want to have this password. But I feel like that might become an obstacle for them to log in or for parents to help them log in. So I would disable this required password feature. It's disabled by default. So just keep it that way. That'd be my recommendation. For video, you can turn on your video at the start, and you can select to turn off the participant's video or on. These are default settings. This won't be the setting throughout the meeting. They have the option to change these settings as the meeting progresses.
What does that mean? If the participants is off, does that mean that their video won't show?
The video will be defaulted to off, but they have the option to turn it on.
Okay.
So, and when you log in, they will initially be without their camera on. That's what this is.
Wouldn't that make it harder for the kids? Some of them might not know how to turn it on.
For you to see them, yeah, it would depend on, again, on your preference. I know that later on when we get to muting, we want to have the students muted because having that many kids talking at the same time might be overloading for the system and for us, right, to hear 25, 30 students speaking at the same time. So this is another way to kind of help ease the connection. So, but it's up to your preference, right? I would initially start it at off and then turn on my video so that they can see me, but I wouldn't be able to see them unless they turn on their camera. But again, this is up to your preference. There is an option where they can also join and hear the meeting through telephone. I typically leave this just by default, and I haven't had anybody join in with telephone, but it is an option. And then the calendar, I like to add my events to my Google Calendar, so this is selected for me.
Oh, hold on, my sister's calling me. She's
Is there a way to view the students but not have the meeting recorded? Because I know with young kids, we were told not to record any sessions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the session is not recorded by default. And actually here in the advanced options, where I'm going to click on next, you have the option to record the meeting. Right, so as long as this is not checked, the meeting will not be recorded unless you manually select the record button, which we'll go over in the meeting controls. So the meetings are not recorded by default.
Okay.
Okay. So I was mentioning earlier that I would have the participants muted upon entry. And this just kind of establishes a routine with your kids, which we'll kind of go over a little bit later, is they start off muted, they listen for instructions, and then as they have something to share, or if you want them to maybe share their screen or ask a question, then they can unmute themselves, just like you did with by clicking on the microphone on the bottom left corner. Okay. And you can kind of have a routine set up where they can take turns. And that way we don't have, 20, 30 kids screaming at the same time or talking at the same time. I'm getting a request in the chat to go over the meeting ID one more time. So just very quickly, if you're setting up a one-time meeting, you want to generate a meeting ID automatically. This is a unique meeting code. If you have a recurring meeting with your students and you want them to just have one URL, you can select this personal ID, and it's going to be the same meeting ID each time. If I only allow computer audio for my Zoom today, I received a request for phone. How do I edit a meeting schedule today to fix this? I'm not too sure about this request for phone. If I only allow computer audio, see request for phone. I would just leave this as defaulted for your audio, just telephone and computer audio. I'm not sure what the request for phone might be. Okay. And then let's see.
Quick
Any other
question.
questions? Yes.
If you're leading the meeting and someone has their mic on, can you turn off their mic?
Yes, that's a great feature that I'm going to share with you in a sec. Let me see here. If I go into, do you guys see my screen where it says manage participants or no?
Yes.
Okay, so if you click on that, there are three buttons down here at the bottom. The first one is mute all. And so if I click on that, it will mute everybody. I'm going to do that just for demonstration purposes. So, and you can uncheck this option if you want them to remain muted, by the way. Okay, so that will mute all of the participants. Oh, to answer that question, if you only set it up for computer audio, but you want phone access, you can change that setting before the meeting starts.
I have a question about the calendar.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
I have a question about the calendar. Can we set it up for the calendar that's built into a Mac?
I believe if you go to other calendar, it will pop up with an option for you to copy it, or you can open it with your default calendar, .ics. So if you have your Mac calendar, this by clicking on here, it should open up to your Mac calendar, and you should be able to save it.
Thank you.
Good. That's okay. All right. So moving on, just as a review, what we went over for scheduling a meeting. Make sure you add a topic. Make sure you select the date and time. Set it if it's recurring. Are you going to require a password? Which again, I would recommend against this, just to make it easier for students to log in. You have to set the audio and video options, add it to your calendar, and then select any advanced options if you wish to enable them, such as mute participants upon entry. And to answer that question in the chat, the mute all is in the participants, manage participants. If you just click on the icon here, you have these three buttons: mute all, unmute all, or there's more. Lock meetings so that nobody else can enter, and there's a few more options on here. Okay, any questions about scheduling a Zoom meeting? hopefully I covered that well enough. If you have any questions, you feel free to type it into the chat. Okay. So now, how are students going to log in? Well, once you create a meeting, you can, you're going to get an invitation. So let me go back here. So let's schedule this meeting. And then, oh, let me go back. Okay, so once you have your meeting scheduled, you're going to see an option here for copy invitation. If you do this on the website, this will, you'll come to a screen, which actually, let me demo that real quick. Okay, so if I schedule a meeting here online instead of using the desktop, you can see I have the same options, right? We're gonna save that, and you're given this URL right here. This is what the kids need in order to sign in to the Zoom meeting. You can send this out through your Outlook. You can set it up on Google Calendar. You can post it on a Google Classroom. You can post it onto Schoology. Send it out through Class Dojo. Any way that you communicate with parents and students, just send out this link right here. You will also have this meeting ID, which can be used to log into the meeting, but it's a little more tedious. It's a little more steps that you have to go through. The easiest thing is to just send this URL. They click on it, and it will open up to your meeting. Let me go back to my slides here. Okay, so like I mentioned, students only need the URL. Send the invitation via email to students or parents. Post it on Google Classroom. Post it on Schoology. Send it through Class Dojo. Any way that you communicate with those parents. If you're setting up a one-time URL, your personal meeting URL, and you're sharing that, you can have the kids bookmark that page. That way they can, click on it one time and it opens up right away for them. That's probably the easiest. If you can get parents to help the students do that, I think that would save a lot of time and trouble. Will the URL need a password? Only if you've enabled password in your Zoom meeting. Do students need Zoom installed for the meeting URL to work? As soon as they click the meeting URL, it will prompt them to install either a web plugin or install the desktop. So yes, it will ask them to install something. Typically, if they're on Chrome, it will just install the web plugin. If they're on a Chromebook, that's the only thing that will install. There's no option to install the Zoom desktop on a Chromebook. So it should be fairly straightforward. All they have to do is, if their computer is password protected, parents might have to enter the password and accept. It takes a minute at most to install, and then they should be logged in right away. I was mentioning there is another way for students to join a Zoom session besides just clicking on the link, and that's by going to this URL, which is zoom.us/join. Here, they would have to enter that personal meeting ID that I showed you guys on the other page. It's about a 6-7 digit ID. They would enter it here and press join. That, I think, is just more steps that we don't have to have the kids go through. I think just send the link, have them click on it, and they'll be in. First-time users will be prompted to install the Zoom meeting plugin, and students can join from PC, laptop, MacBook, Chromebook. And again, they can join with iPad and their phone, but the usability is going to be compromised. Let's see if we can admit any more people. Okay. This is a screenshot of what it will look like for the students once they click your Zoom URL. So it will say launching Zoom, and it will prompt them at the top. Do you want to open up the Zoom meeting? They press the open once it's installed, and they're right in the meeting. So it's very limited steps, especially if they've installed it already. It's just click on the link, click open Zoom meeting, and they're in. any questions about that? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. Okay, let's see what's here on the chat. We sent home iPads that I believe are locked. Will students be able to use Zoom? I've seen that Zoom has been added to the LAUSD catalog. So I know that there is an option to install it through that catalog app. I'm not sure if ITD plans to push out Zoom. But I do know that I've seen it on some LAUSD catalogs. How do we use whiteboard with our class? Oh, yes, that's a Zoom feature, annotations, which I'll go over in a second. So the next thing we're going to cover are the Zoom meeting tools, right? There's quite a few. The Zoom meeting tools show up as a bar at the bottom. If you're a host, you have some more options, obviously, than if you're a participant. The first one is the mute option. You can see if you click on the microphone itself, it will either mute you or unmute you. If you click on the arrow, that little pop-up, it brings up this menu right here. So if you have another microphone connected to your device, you can switch microphones. If you have speakers connected, you can select what speaker the audio comes out from, and then you can test your microphone, test your speaker. And there's some other advanced options. Most of the time, you're gonna join with your computer audio, you're gonna use your computer speaker, and you'll just leave it at that. But if you have a Bluetooth headset or any type of headset, you might need to switch the options on here. What I would do is I would join the meeting a few minutes before the scheduled start time. Make sure that your microphone is working, make sure that your video is working, just to see if you have to change any settings before the meeting begins.
Sanchez, can I interrupt you for a second?
I'm sorry?
What is the code for the 11 o'clock? My colleagues are asking.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing your question.
What is the code for the 11 o'clock? My colleagues are asking.
Oh, what is the code? Okay, let me go ahead and post it on here.
This is 352.
There you go. Oh, I'm sorry. Sent it. Here we go. Everybody in the meeting. Okay. All right, so that's the microphone. Next, we have the camera. And again, if you have a webcam connected to your computer, you can alternate between webcams. If you're on a laptop, typically this is just your default camera. And then the next option is to invite students. If you see that a student might not be signed on, you want to make sure they get the invitation, you have the option to invite people while you're running the meeting. So if you click on invite people, which let me make this a little bit larger for everybody to see, you can invite people that are in your contacts just by clicking on them, right? And then pressing the invite button, or you can send out an email either through your Outlook, through Gmail, or any or Yahoo Mail here. So it is possible if you notice somebody is not there, you can remind them by sending them an invitation mid-meeting. Manage participants. This is what allows you to mute, unmute, and see just who is connected to your meeting, how many participants are there. If you need to mute everybody just so that you can get a word in, right? If the kids have unmuted their screens, you want to make sure they are hearing your next set of directions. You can mute everybody for a second and just give them that next set of instructions.
Mr. Sanchez, I have a quick question.
Yes.
I did this yesterday with my class. I had mute all, but I had one student who could keep unmuting himself. Is there something I missed somewhere down the line that I needed to have checked? He was the only one.
Possibly this one right here that says allow participants to unmute themselves. So this will mute them, but it won't prevent them from unmuting themselves. So if you unselect this, it should just leave everybody muted. And then but the only thing is you would have to manually go over each person's name and unmute them if you want them to share something.
Oh, well, with younger children, that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I just noticed that at the end we have raised hand as a button. Yes. So there are some interactions that you guys have as participants that I don't have. I believe that's towards the end. Instead of record, I think you have reactions or something like that. And then you can click on that and there's a clapping or a hand raise or a thumbs up. And that could be a way that you get feedback with your class without having to unmute them to speak. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, so the screen share, there's a lot of options when it comes to sharing your screen. The default option, the first option is just share your whole desktop, which is what I'm doing right now. That's not always what you want to do. So there are some other options here. You can share a particular window that you have open. Right? If you have your Chrome browser open, this will show up. If you have maybe a Microsoft Word or another file open, that will show up as well. And you have the feature to share individual windows. You could also share a whiteboard. This would be probably most beneficial if you have a stylus and a touchscreen, so you can write on the whiteboard. I'll demo that a little bit later. And there is this iPhone, iPad where you can share something on your iPhone or iPad. It does require an extension, another plugin to be installed. Most of the time, this is not something that you would do, but it is an option. Maybe if your kids have an iPad that was sent with them and you want them to go on a specific app and you want to demo how to use that app, you can, if you have a Mac, you can set up a kind of like an AirPlay so that you can demo what their screen should look like as they're going through it. Okay, couldn't we take away the option from students to unmute themselves? Check the button. Yes, that's a good idea. Thank you, Erin, for mentioning that. Unmuting everybody, take away that option, and then unmuting everybody. That would be, and then letting them know that they can. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Next, so besides the basic, you do also have these advanced options where you can share just a portion of your screen. You can click and drag and highlight, for instance, half of the screen, and only things on that side will be shared. You can share your computer sound only, and if you have a document camera like an Elmo that's connected to your device, you can set this up where it will share the content from that document camera. Okay, but again, these are advanced features. Most of the time you won't be using them. The two things that you should use if you plan to share video is share the computer sound. You see this little option down here, share computer sound, and optimize screen sharing for video clip. So if you want to share a YouTube video or any other educational video, and you want the kids to hear it on their end, you have to select share computer sound, and to allow it to be viewed a little bit cleaner, optimize the screen sharing for the video clip. So two options that you should enable. How can we show what the students' screens look like? How can they share what their screens look like? They have the option to share as well. So I think you guys see it on your end. You do have this this share screen button, and they can share their screen. You can ask them to click on here and share their desktop. Lastly, you can share some files that are in the cloud, whether it's on a Dropbox or on Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and Box. So you can go in here. You'd have to allow Zoom permissions to view those files. But if you want to, you can share documents through here. Okay. Okay. So up at the top, when you're sharing your screen, you're going to have these options here. You have mute the video, participants. These are tools that I've been using as I'm sharing my screen. One of the tools that comes in handy is the annotate tool at the top. So the annotate tool, let me move this out of the way, allows you to write, type, put arrows on your screen in case you want to highlight something important. For instance, make sure you click on this link, make sure you click on or type in your information inside of this text box. You can use this annotate tool to do that without actually affecting your screen, what it looks like. So if I press annotate, for instance, and I want to use my arrow, I can click here. Do you guys see this blue arrow that popped up? Right, so I can highlight where I want the students to view, what I want them to click on. You can also draw. Right, you can draw, you can stamp, check mark, and you can type in some text. Text. And the students will be able to view it. It's kind of like if you have a clear film and you are projecting over something, right? It doesn't affect what's underneath. It's just another layer on top. Once you're done, you can clear it by, there is a trash can option here. You can clear all the drawings and then continue with your presentation. So I encourage you guys to try that out for yourselves. Play around with this and see how best you can utilize it for your meeting. Okay, next we have the chat, which is how you guys have been interacting with me for the most part, asking me questions in this chat. Oh, I did not receive an email you sent out. How do I join the group email? If you want to join the group email, you can just type in your email right here. And then I'm going to save the chat and retrieve everybody's email. Oh, also, if you can mention what school you're from, that would help us out as well. We send this message out to the principals, and then I think they forward it along. So if you can add that to your chat, that way you get the invitation for the follow-up meeting. Please review where you found all those options. These options show up when you share your screen. You have to enable your share screen, select either your desktop.
I don't know, but Connor's pretty tech savvy.
Yes, he is, right? So
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
What was I saying? Yeah, so you have to actually share your screen in order to get these options enabled, in order for them to pop up. Before doing that, you won't see any of these options. Okay. So the chat I was mentioning, if you click on the chat, you can send messages to everybody. You can select a specific student or participant to send a message to. You can send a file. There's an option right here that says file. So you can send a file from your computer as a link. And then when you are done, you can also save the chat. So there's these three dots. Let me maximize this a little bit better. These three dots next to the word file, and you can save everything that was used in that chat. I'll show you where it's stored in a second. It's a text file that you can easily open up. You can also set some permissions in the chat. You can make it so that the participants can't use the chat, so that they can only chat with the host, chat with everybody publicly, or send a chat with everybody publicly and privately. For your cases, you probably want to leave it at everybody publicly so you can see what's going on with the students, right? Okay. You see the chat here. Oh, wow, we have quite a few people joining us. Nice. Can we select which students can share their screens and which can't? No, I don't believe you can. There's an option here that will say when the students click share screen, it's gonna give them the same options that you have, and then it will say something like you will take over the share screen from so and so. So if somebody is willing to try, we can demo that now. Just share like a desktop. Let me exit out of here. Then multiple screens will be displayed or one at a time. One at a time. So there is an option that overrides that lets multiple people share at one time, but by default, it's set so that students share their screens one at a time. Is there a way to practice these features without holding a meeting? The best thing to do to practice is to just do a meeting without any participants. So you can start your own meeting here through the Zoom desktop. Instead of return to meeting, there'll be an option to start meeting. And you can start a meeting by yourself, and you'll have the ability to use all of the tools and practice without having any participants. Okay, so I know somebody asked about recording the meeting. If you don't set up record in the meeting settings when you first are scheduling your meeting, you will have this option to record the meeting. The meeting will record what you are sharing on your screen, on what you are sharing in the meeting. So it could be your screen, your camera. You can pause the recording midway and then resume it later. And it will save to a file on your computer. For a Windows desktop or Windows computer, it will be under My Documents, Zoom, meeting name. I'm not exactly sure what the path for a Mac would be, but I'm assuming it should be similar somewhere in My Documents inside of a Zoom folder. And then it will have the meeting name, which I'll show right now. If I open up My Documents, I go to Documents. See, we have Zoom. And then this is our meeting right here, getting started with Zoom. And you'll see there's some video files right here. Once you double click, they will convert into MP4. What does the remote control option do? The remote control will allow students to take over your screen, which you probably don't want to do, but it will also, you can invite the teacher to take control of a student's screen. So students can click, who are sharing their screen, can choose remote control and then give access to the teacher to take over their screen. And that's if they need more guided help, that there is that functionality. You're welcome. Okay. So lastly, before you end a meeting, you want to make sure that you end the meeting and you end the meeting for everybody. You can leave the meeting and the meeting will continue, but you don't want to do that with your students, right? So make sure that when you are leaving this meeting, you end it for everybody so it can't get started again. I've noticed that your screen, we can see private chats. Is this always the case for the host? The host can, the students will always be able to chat with the host privately unless you've changed the setting so that no one can use the chat. Do participants have the option to record or only the host? By default, it is only the host. I would not change that. The host can see all chat messages unless you have selected allow private, everyone publicly and privately. This is default, by the way, so if you do want to change this, log in a few minutes before your scheduled meeting and change the setting in the chat. How to make available the file recorded session to students. So once you have your file, and which again is going to be in your document Zoom, and then look for the topic title of your meeting, that will be converted into an MP4 file. If you have a way to share video with your kids through either Google Classroom or through maybe Schoology or some other means, maybe an email address you can send it to, you can share with them that file that way. The easiest would be, at least the easiest for me that I've seen, is to just upload it to your Google Drive and then share that link through either an email or through the Google Classroom. Any idea what the maximum file size is to upload to Schoology? I wouldn't be able to answer that, unfortunately. You'd have to ask somebody else for the Schoology. Yes, there are privacy concerns about recording, and I would ask your administrators for guidance. I know that there's been some talk about Zoom and privacy issues, so I would default to your administrators. Inviting the kids. Just very quickly, if you're inviting the students, you probably want to either post it onto the link onto a Google Classroom or onto Schoology, the link from the meeting that's created. Just to let you know, if you did come in late, we will have another session at 11, and this will be recorded and probably shared with administrators so they can share it with their teachers. Can you record sessions without the kids' faces to alleviate privacy concerns? You would have to make sure the students have their cameras turned off. Oh, I did say I would show you how to make a copy of this Google slide. So if you want a copy of this and you're in this file, you should be able to go to File and then either download it, or you should be able to make a copy for yourself. So again, File, Download, you can download it as a PDF or a PowerPoint, or you should be able to make a copy for yourself. The rooms where kids can work together in groups is a premium feature. So these are features you can do with the free account. All right, so very quickly, whenever you are starting a session, it's always a good idea to lay out some groundkeeping rules. So make sure that the students are muted. Inform the students how to stop their video if you plan to record this and don't want their faces shared. There is an option to toggle between full screen view and gallery view. I think you guys will see it on your top corner. It should be on this area right here. Most of the time, if you're presenting, you want students to be in full screen view so they can see your screen. If you're having maybe a chat session with some colleagues, then maybe you want to be on gallery view to view everybody. Okay. Let's see, questions in the chat. Oh, I did share it with everybody. I'll post the link one more time to this. If you can't, oh, sorry. Send it to everybody in the meeting. If you did come in late, this is the document that I'm currently going off of. You're welcome. Okay, some do's and don'ts, some best practices. When you make sure you practice running a meeting without students. You know, open up the desktop and start your own private meeting. Test out the tools. Make sure you're comfortable sharing your screen. Make sure you're comfortable setting options. Just play around with it. Okay. Make sure that you run meetings from a quiet space. The camera, especially if you're using your laptop camera and mic, will pick up lots of different sounds. If you have a headset, it's less so, but still make sure you have a quiet space to run these meetings. Make sure you turn on your camera. Make sure that the students can see you, right? They've been away from school for a while, and I'm sure they'll be excited to see their teachers. So please make sure your camera is turned on. Start the meetings with the students on mute, right? And let them know that, you know, how your class is going to run, how your session is going to run. So establish a system for the kids to engage with you, whether it's using reactions for quick feedback, asking them to type in questions in the chat or feedback through the chat, maybe call on some students to unmute and share, right? Make sure you have your procedures down. And then also give a 5-10 minute grace period for kids to log in. Earlier we had a bunch of people rolling in, so we just I waited a few minutes. I shared with everybody who was in the session. I shared with them our Google Slides that we're going off of. So maybe you want to give them a link, something to view while we're waiting for more people to come in. Just think of how you would want to pace out your session. Okay? Don't expect things to run like they would in a regular classroom. This is obviously not going to be the same thing. Don't get discouraged if things don't go as planned. We're all learning. You know, this is something that everybody kind of got thrown into. So please don't be hard on yourself and practice and try your best. Maybe get some feedback from other teachers who are running it, and you know, pick at each other's brains a little bit and get ideas from them. Don't forget to check the chat periodically, as I've been doing. So make sure you pop up the chat. Sometimes when you are presenting, you get so fixated on what's on your screen, you forget to check to see what's going on with the chat. So make sure you pop into that periodically. And then make sure before you leave the meeting, you end it for everybody. Otherwise, the students will still be in there, and they might have some interaction that you don't want to happen. So let's make sure that meeting is ended once you leave. Oh, how to use the whiteboard. The whiteboard is a share option. So if you go to share and then select whiteboard, it will pop up with this whiteboard. And then if you have a touchscreen or a stylus, you can just, you know, write on it. Right. You can also use your mouse, but it's a little bit more difficult. And to share PowerPoint with the students or parents, best thing to do is, if you can, make it a Google slide and make the slide and share the slide so that anybody with the link can view it, which is what I've done. If you have a Google Classroom set up, you can post it in the Google Classroom, or maybe post it onto Schoology. That would be the best way for me to suggest to you how you would share the PowerPoint. You can also share the PowerPoint itself as a file through an email, but that could become a little bit more complicated, and not every student has Microsoft Office installed on their computer, especially if they're on a Chromebook. So I think Google Slides, because it's hosted online, it doesn't require the students to download anything, I think would be the best way for that. You don't have to, no, you don't have to use Google Slides. I'm not particularly sure if Schoology has an option for presentation as well, but maybe you can do it through there. My PowerPoint, In documents. No, the recording is going to be in my documents, but this is a Google slide. If you want a copy, you can go to File. You can download this as a PowerPoint or a PDF, or you can make a copy if you're signed into your Google account. Make a copy of the entire presentation. You can have that. If you did download this file, it will most likely end up in your downloads folder. Okay. So any other questions that I didn't get to? A lot of people couldn't make it at 11. Can you make a high room limit? Unfortunately, Zoom only allows 100 at a time for this right now. So 100 is our max at the moment, and it will be your max as well. If you haven't done so already, please add your email address in your school, and I'll be sending out invitations for a follow-up meeting later this week. It's going to be on Wednesday at around 9 o'clock. Does 9 o'clock work for everybody, or is there a lot of people with conflicting schedules with that? Nine is good? Okay. No, I have Zoom meetings with parents at that time. We might also have another one on Friday. If Wednesday doesn't work, I will let you know. I'll be sending emails out with the invitations. So if you can please just add that in here. And then we'll probably have 2 meetings, one on Wednesday, one on Friday, possibly. And if you can't make one, hopefully you can make the other. We can get together and discuss any questions you might have. I'll go over some virtual background options that are good to use, and anything else that wasn't covered here, we'll cover in the next meeting. And also, if you have any suggestions or any comments about other trainings that you'd like for us to host, you can message me at this is my email right here, jsanchez@computerwisekids.com, and based on the response from teachers, then we'll create something for that. Whether it's on Google Classroom or some other tool that you want to use for your long distance learning. Is there anything Screencastify can do that this can't? Well, one of the things, I'm not too familiar with Screencastify. I know that you can record your screen with it, at least for the free version, and it will connect to your Google Drive. But this allows you to chat with your students and send them links. I'm not sure if that functionality is built into Screencastify. Thank you guys for your comments. If you want to ask me another question, take down my email information. You can send it to me there, and I'll do my best to respond to them. Can you post a screencast to a meeting? That's a good question. I have not tried that, Sally. I will look into it. Where will you post slides so we can review another time? I encourage you to make a copy, either download it or either download it to your computer or make a copy to your Google account. I'm going to post the link one more time so you can view it. Okay, so make sure you go to File, either download as a PDF or a PowerPoint, and then or make a copy of the entire presentation. All right, I'll stay on a couple more minutes in case anybody else has any questions they want to ask. If not, thank you for attending today. I hope this was beneficial to you guys. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. If not, have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye. My email is right here on the Google slide. It's jsanchez@computerwisekids.com.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
I'm sorry, for the 11 o'clock one, I did see a session ID number. I was just wondering if this was correct.
The session ID, I'll post it one more time. Let me see here for the 11 o'clock. Okay, the link is in the chat. Yes, let me know.
Thank you, Josue.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
That's okay.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Is it okay to ask you a question?
Sure, of course.
This way? Okay. If instead of giving users a session and meeting ID and password every time, I mean, getting the link, can you set up the meeting by giving the same meeting ID and password?
Yeah, so if you make a session and then here, let me share my screen one more time. One quick second. So if you make your session and you use your personal meeting ID, this personal meeting ID does not change, which means the URL, the link will not change. So you can use this instead of generating one each time.
Okay, and that way, when you're inviting people, and rather than doing the link each time, you can just give them that session ID?
Yes, well, you can, this will generate its own URL, its own link, and you can give them this link that's generated from this personal meeting. So when I schedule this, it will share with me what my URL is, and it will be the same one for each of them. So for instance, if you can see this is the Zoom meeting URL. If you are making it with your private, your personal meeting ID, this will not change. So you can schedule as many as you want with your personal meeting ID, and this link will not change.
Okay, the link will not change.
Yeah, so what you can do is if you set it up that way, you can have the students or the parents bookmark it on the web browser, and that way they can just click on that bookmark. That might be the easiest way.
So that way you don't have to keep doing the separate invitations for each time, right?
Right, you might just need to send a reminder.
Send a reminder, okay. Okay. I missed what you said about the Google Classroom. You said you were posting something. I didn't understand.
Oh, so if you do have a Google Classroom set up, instead of sending an email invitation, you can post a link to the Google Classroom.
Oh, okay. Post the link. Okay. And our union representative said something about not having the kids be able to see the kids, that she's advising that. Has anyone heard anything about that, or?
I'm not sure. I would seek advice from your administrator about that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take a little. Sorry to take your.
No, it's all right.
Go back. I missed most of the meeting because of I couldn't get in. There were too many
we were capped at 100, and once 100 people were reached, I couldn't add any more as people kind of left, and then I started to add more as I could. So I apologize about that. I will have another session at 11 if you want to catch the first half of that meeting you missed.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna sign out so I can go back at 11. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Okay, now I just have to get out of here.
All right, guys, I'm ending the meeting. If you have any questions, please email me at jsanchez@computerwisekids.com.
Okay,
Have a
thank you
good
very
one.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.